The Miracle on Bourbon Street is a decade old. Fuck you, Hands of Time. I'm John Renton with the Retro Review WWE WrestleMania 30 from the New Orleans Superdome. Hulk Hogan said Silverdome twice while he was in the Superdome on the first ever WrestleMania to take place on the award-winning WWE Network before everything from the award-winning WWE Network went straight over to the cock, and soon everything will go from the cock to Netflix. But yes, WrestleMania 30 is 10 years old. The fuck? I was 33 years old when this event happened. It seems like just yesterday that Vince McMahon took the streak away from us to give us Daniel Bryan as the WWE Champion. You can't convince me that Vince McMahon wasn't a spiteful son of a bitch. We know how spiteful he was backstage and in Titan Towers and all that, but that being said, how does this event hold up after 10 years? Well, some of it holds up pretty good. Look, it's a grandiose atmosphere, and it did feel like a WrestleMania. It felt much more like a WrestleMania than 27 and 29. But before I really get into, the details of the whole goddamn thing, let's talk about some of the previous WrestleManias. The facts, the figures, the buys, the fans, the reception. Because they were, of course, in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, because everything has to be sponsored these days. 690,000 pay-per-view buys. And that's actually pretty goddamn good overall. They weren't able to get nearly as many subscribers to the award-winning WWE Network as they thought. And they had 75,167 people. I don't believe that for one goddamn second. I believe around 70, but maybe they counted the entire staff. So the capacity could go up to just about 1,300 more than that. And honestly, if you just ram-jammed everybody into the goddamn, New Orleans Superdome, where Bill Watts ran a few shows, where like JYD and Michael Hayes had the whole blinding angle blow off, and the Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express and various other teams, and everybody had this great competition, and the Superdome has a great history when it comes to professional wrestling. I'm not going to go over all that stuff because, that would take a while. But let's just talk about previous WrestleManias. Let's go all the way back to Mania 25. That was not the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. Semantics raging into the dying light. I don't think that's how that works. So 2009, they were at Reliance Stadium in Houston, Texas. So they had about 72,744 fans and did just under 1 million buys. It was 960,000 pay-per-view buys. Okay, so not just under 1 million, but close enough for rock and roll, I guess. And that, of course, wasn't the most well-received Mania outside of Taker and Shawn. And there were a couple other matches that weren't all that bad, but they didn't have Taker and Shawn close the show. They had Triple H and Orton close it with a horrible stipulation that if Triple H got disqualified, that would be it. Good job. Good job there, WWE. But at least we got Cena briefly picking up Edge and Big Show, which was a lot of huge manatee to pick up. Other than that, though, CM Punk winning the Money in the Bank briefcase for the second year in a row. Other than that, the Hardys facing off against each other. Realistically, Mania, 25, not all that well received, but Taker and Shawn, magnifique, I believe is how you say it. Let's go to, in Phoenix in 2010. They were at, Glendale, technically. University of Phoenix Stadium, at least that's what it was, I believe, or what it is now. 72,000 or so, 72,200 some odd fans. And they were down. They were down on the pay-per-view buys. 885,000 pay-per-view buys. And in all honesty, I don't blame them. Now, that Mania isn't all that bad. It's a tale of two Manias. Batista and Cena had a pretty good match. Edge and Jericho didn't get out of the blocks, in my personal opinion. Taker and Shawn closed the show. And you did get some good stuff. Don't misunderstand me. You also got a very clustered Money in the Bank ladder match that had the future Jake Hager, a.k.a. the current Jack Swagger at this time, winning the briefcase that absolutely nobody won. Everybody thought it should have been Drew McIntyre. It should have been me. No Ziggler, not you, not yet. You were cutting that promo for a while. What the fuck is wrong with you? But we also got, I believe it was it Big Show and Miz against Truth and Morrison? I think it was. I think it actually was, and never understood why they opened with that. We also got the 10-woman tag that I believe had Vicky Guerrero bullfrog splashing because she's a piece of shit, so I'll make fun of her all I want. But yeah, 885,000 pay-per-view buys. And don't worry, things would trend upwards, oddly enough, given the next Mania. They were at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta for WrestleMania 27, and that was 71,617 fans. 1.059 million pay-per-view buys, and that was because The Rock had returned, and they said, we gotta see The Rock show up, and he hosted Mania, and then he talked for a while, and then Miz and Cena was the main event. And it's unfortunate that Miz doesn't remember the match, because then he could remember, like the rest of us, that it wasn't very good, and that's not even Miz's fault. Miz did the best he could as WWE Champion, but let's be perfectly honest, it was all about when Rock would interfere. And Miz, unfortunately, suffered a severe concussion, which I'm glad he was all right and able to continue to defend his title for the next month or thereabouts. But Rock interfering, costing Cena the match, and Miz won. Also, Undertaker and Triple H had, in my opinion, a fairly overrated match at WrestleMania. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. End of an Era at least had better storytelling. I think they tried to force too much of the whole emotional depth. And also, I've always been of the opinion Triple H is the guy that can work with the top guy. He can at times be the top guy, but he's never the best top guy. That's just my opinion. But you also had CM Punk against Randy Orton. You had Cody versus Ray. And you didn't have Money in the Bank at the event. You just had a bunch of clustered stuff and everything. And yeah, this Mania was a bit of a mess. We also had an 8-man tag where Kozlov got taken out. And then the core got squashed within 90 seconds, I think. And I don't remember if the women had a match on that show. If they did, obviously it wasn't memorable. So, nevertheless, we go to Mania 28, the most bought WrestleMania of all time. 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, and that was for John Cena and The Rock. Once in a lifetime. They never did it again. Why would they do that? They wouldn't lie to the fans. They did. They did lie to the fans. But they were in Sun Life Stadium in Miami, Florida. 78,363 or so fans. Yeah, 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. Big goddamn deal. That is nuts. And we got Rock being gassed, but then again, he wasn't able to really, have a full match at that point. He was an actor. Coming back, he had one match in the last 8 or so years against teaming with John Cena against Awesome Truth at Survivor Series 2011 in Madison Square Garden. But he beat Cena, and it was great. We had End of an Era. It was layered. It was pretty layered. We did have some good stuff. We had Jericho versus Punk. We had, and Sean being the referee of that whole thing. There was good stuff there. There was also Orton and Kane that just didn't quite work. And we also had Sheamus beat Daniel Bryan in 18 seconds because Vince McMahon doesn't like to give the fans what they want. Also, why was AJ Lee so tan? I mean, was it just the fact that they sprayed her with orange? It was insane. Maybe it was the fact that the mat was white and she was around, and it was during the daytime and everything, but I just couldn't unsee that. And I want to say Maria Menounos actually competed at this one. I believe she competed too, or she at least showed up at one Mania. I know she had broken ribs and still competed. So credit to her there. And she also got a lot of unnecessary hate when she, I believe, inducted or at least talked about Bob Backlund at the Hall of Fame. She was an odd choice, but at least she was a fan. And she was willing to give people a chance. That being said, let's smash cut to Mania 29, twice in a lifetime. We saw 80,676 fans in Jersey. Fucking Jersey. Outdoors. In the aftermath of winter. 1.048 million pay-per-view buys. Okay, slightly down from 27, pretty down, or a little bit down from 28. It wasn't going to do as well. Now, Cena and Rock did the best they could to build that, but we also had the Shield destroy Big Show, Kane, and Sheamus, if I recall correctly. See, I've retro-reviewed this stuff, but I have done a lot of wrestling, a lot of wrestling content and movies and everything, and also a lot of head injuries, so I forget things. That being said, we get, we got a fairly layered card. It was just kind of layered with bullshit. But yeah, Taker and we had Taker and Punk have a great match. Cena got his win back. We had Jericho put over Fandango. We had Big E Langston back before he dropped the Langston. And then we had Dolph Ziggler not cash in during Swagger and Del Rio. Swagger was going to win, and then he fucked up by getting busted for driving while under the influence. I think under the influence of weed, whatever. Dutch Mantel had just recently lost his daughter, or had lost his daughter in the past to a drunk driving accident. Good job there, Jack. So we then go to the second Mania to take place on network. That was in Santa Clara. That was at Levi's Stadium. So that was where the Niners play. 67,000 fans. 259,000 pay-per-view buys still. And then there was nothing for Dallas. There was nothing for the Dallas, where it was 101,763. Bullshit. But yeah, back to 31. Seth Rollins cashed in, and we actually had some pretty good stuff there. And a hell of an RKO. Let's get back to Mania 30, and let's talk about some of the pre-show now. Yeah, let's do it now. Then Now Together Forever. Triple H and Stephanie revealed the stage. Josh Matthews, remember that fucking idiot? Yeah, God, I hope he's doing miserable, that piece of shit. Mick Foley was there. Booker T when he made sense, and Shawn Michaels. Keep an eye on the rest of the panel and also on the vending machine. So Renee was backstage looking at tweets. Renee has not aged one goddamn bit, I do want to say. She just cut her hair. So we get packages. We get a Wyatt, preview, or we get a Wyatt, promo where he talks about the terrible things that he's done. If I've done terrible things to friends, what chance do you have, John? And a little bit of a spoiler depending on when you see this. I am recording this before the Bray Wyatt becoming immortal thing comes out on the cock, and I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to review that. So I will talk about that here in a little bit. Alex Riley was out there with the people. Remember Alex Riley? So they had Shawn Merriman on the panel. I have no memory of this, and I watched this event. So Batista package, he was interviewed by Booker T. Boy, they cleared things up after the whole SummerSlam 2006 shoot. If you know, you know. And pre-show match, by the way, was the Usos versus Los Matadores. Remember when they had Primo and Epico as Matadors, and they had El Torito, the little midget bull guy. And then they also had the Real Americans, which was Cesaro and Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter, the xenophobic son of a bitch that he is. And Ryback and Curtis Axel. They were a team. It was a 4-way elimination match, and basically there was miscommunications with Cesaro and Swagger. The Usos retained, and then Swagger got swung by Cesaro. And if you see that match, it's okay. It's nothing great. There were so many multiple person matches taking place even back then, and there's one on here. Actually, there's a couple on here. It's insane. And jazz music plays us over this package in New Orleans. The birth of jazz music, pretty much. What sorcery is this? Video package, previous events. Kid Rock couldn't sing a lick and really is a phony. He's a rich kid playing white trash. He has a white trash mindset, just want to say. But Pyro's kind of muted. The set's all big and looks great. Hogan comes out. He's the host of WrestleMania because they were going to clear Hogan to get out there and wrestle. Did you see his stuff in TNA? You shouldn't have. It was rubbish. But, talking about being back, it's great to be back in the Silverdome. He said Silverdome twice. Cold, Lawler, and JBL, by the way, are calling the action. They're trying to correct him. Hogan's an idiot. He's flashing back to when he was actually relevant and not just living on past glory. And he does the typical what you're going to do, and then Austin shows up to a big pop. It was a long stage for a guy with bad knees to walk down. I didn't feel bad for Hogan. I mean, he could go into the goddamn desert and never come back. But Austin coming back, Even though Austin also beat 2 of his wives. Let's get back to this. Good to be back in the Superdome. We get what chance? WrestleMania 1, what? WrestleMania 2, what? And then The Rock shows up to a big pop. The Rock has come back to New Orleans. The Rock has come back to WrestleMania. And The Rock has come back to the Superdome. And Hogan's just all because Hogan getting picked on was a good thing. There were Superdome chants. This was a big goddamn deal, and it was cool to see these 3 guys, even at the stage of their careers and their lives that they were at this point, sharing a ring. We never got to see this 3-way. Oh my. But Rock talked about facing both of them at WrestleMania. And Rock then talks about tonight's card, talks about hustle, loyalty, and respect, talks about Daniel Bryan, and that kids are going to be born in January because they're going to start making Rock babies. And we get a beer celebration, so we get all this stuff. We get all this big, throbbing amount of adulation. And it's really, really cool that they decided to do that. And that was great. That was good stuff. I really did enjoy that. So, from there, Stephanie is in the ring to introduce Triple H. I did kind of like the Diet Mountain Dew bottles just randomly placed on the desk because they were sponsored by them. Also, Connor the Crusher was there, the kid that kind of became the spokesperson for Connor's Cure. Kind of makes sense because unfortunately the young man lost his life. To everybody that booed and whatted the dad at the Hall of Fame, by the way, fuck you. I hope your tongues fall out. And if you were drunk, I hope you got arrested for DUIs and got thrown in jail and couldn't make it to WrestleMania. That being said, the kid died, and God, the younger brother, I love you, Connor. Oh, ow. And that's not me making jokes. I feel bad for the kid. No parent should have to watch their child suffer. That kid didn't do anything. Imagine if that kid had lived, though. What would he have been doing? Because he was 8, 9 years old. Would have been able to become a wrestler. Imagine that. Imagine that big deal. But rest in peace, Connor. Stephanie's in the ring. Introduces Triple H. He's on the throne. And there were 3 women there. And if I remember right, there was Charlotte. There was Alexa. That's the best wrestling Alexa ever did, by the way. Was being at the feet of a throne. And also Sasha, I believe, is there. So he gets a big, pop. That was cool. Daniel Bryan gets a big old reaction. The yes movement. Crowd's all electric. They would be electric a little bit later in the 3-way. But, boy, JBL was insufferable on commentary, by the way. It was Triple H versus Daniel Bryan. The winner takes the last spot in the 3-way main event. And I'm not going to go blow by blow in these matches because it's 10 years old and I'm going to talk about some highlights. But Bryan had a shoulder that, was bad. He also had other injuries that would lead to him, unfortunately, only defending the title once before it got stripped from him. And that would kind of plague him for a while until he basically forced his way back into wrestling and now is in AEW doing diving headbutts. Stop doing the diving headbutts, please. So the crowd loved Bryan. There was shoulder focus by Triple H. This went a bit longer than it needed to. This did not need to go 25 minutes. And I understand why they wanted to go 25 minutes. You could have easily added another match. You could have cut you could have cut 15 minutes off, between 3 matches and still had another match. Arguably, you could have actually opened with the 4-way tag match instead of having it on the pre-show. Stephanie was infuriating and not in the good way at ringside because Stephanie was never one that deserved the spot that she got. Oh, she worked hard. Of course she did. So, nice dives, crossface trading. There was some good stuff here. The pedigree for 2. A little more back and forth. And then the future Bukkake knee. Well, I know that's not what it's called. Let me have this. 1, 2, 3. Bryan wins, Triple H attacks the arm and everything, and Bryan can't possibly make it. And then we get the Shield against Corporate Kane and the New Age Outlaws. Pretty bad that Billy is the only one that, had a career resurgence here. Road Dogg, I do want to say, is a fucking idiot, and Corporate Kane has proven that CTE can follow even people that think that they're more intelligent than they actually are. And Kane can be a smart guy. He's just not using his smarts for good, so fuck him. The Shield won in like 3 minutes. This did not take very long, so we're going to move on from that. It was a big deal that the Shield were 2-0 at Mania. And by proxy, Roman Reigns was 2-0 at Mania. And then backstage was some legends. Hacksaw Slaughter, Steamboat. It was Slam City Toys. Danny Davis was there. Ted DiBiase bought the thing. He took something that was meant for children, like he took welfare money from the people of Mississippi. Maybe he hadn't done that yet, but still going to knock him. And then Ron Simmons comes in. Damn. You can't do it like that. Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, the first annual Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. 30 men and Khali were in the ring. It's not that Khali isn't a man. He's just not a wrestler. He's basically a statue. And Ray's last Mania appearance. I forgot that Ray was in this match. I forgot Justin Gabriel was still there. Yoshitatsu was wrestling on the show. Okay. David Otunga was wrestling on this show, believe it or not. Cody and Drew were there. Brodus was there. The future piece of shit Tyrus. And really all this was about was giving Cesaro a moment. It was clustered. There wasn't a lot to this. Kofi was just going nuts, but then, he even did his foot spot where he didn't, have his feet end up on the ground. And Kerry Von Erich did it in the 91-92 Royal Rumbles, but, well, then he couldn't enter the 93 one, and, yeah, it was hard for him to enter the 94 one. Moving on from this, he had nothing to do with New Orleans. Cesaro and Big Show go back and forth. Cesaro picks up Big Show, dumps him over to a big pop, and they absolutely remembered to capitalize on everything that Cesaro did. I'm not saying Cesaro should have ever been a world champion in WWE, but they could have capitalized on this stuff. They didn't, and it's actually infuriating because he could have been an Intercontinental Champion. He was already a U.S. champion for a while, but then again, Vince McMahon thought he was too Swiss. He thought pushing Big Show in 2024, or 2014 rather, was a good idea. If he was in charge, he probably would think that pushing Big Show in 2024 was a good idea. But nevertheless, Cesaro never got his, the just due that he deserved here. So, then Bray makes his entrance with the band playing him to the ring. And this is really cool, and it's pretty much that and Mania 31 are pretty much the highlights for him at Mania with fans. I know people like Mania 36. That's fine. You can like Mania 36 all you want. I didn't, but I get why people did. And I mean overall. It had nothing to do with just whatever Bray and Cena did. So Harper and Rowan are there. There was a very nice sword dancing voodoo lady who did the hoodoo that you do so well. That was cool. The band played him to the ring. Cena got his usual entrance. And the whole idea was a Cena versus Bray, Harper and Rowan at ringside. The late Luke Harper. Rowan's the only one left. We need to pause and make sure to just take a breath and remember the people that matter. That's really what we need to. So, the whole idea here was Cena was trying to not give in to the hate. Kane tried to make him embrace the hate. Bray was trying to make him embrace the dark side. And that was great storytelling. The problem is the match did not need to go 25 minutes, or at least close to 25 minutes. This could have easily been about 17 and been just fine. And if it was 17, Justin Roberts would have been very interested in it, if you know what I mean. If you know, you know. Allegedly. But there was some good psychology here and some good mind games. The problem is it kind of moved glacially at times. Also, I'm sorry, but as fun as this match was at times, guess what? If Bray had won, then it would have been a whole lot better. This Mania would have been remembered a lot more fondly if Bray had won and if something else hadn't happened. But yeah, Bray didn't win. He tried everything. We got a barricade spear. He tried to get Cena to hit him with a chair. Cena hit Rowan with the chair. And then after the Sister Abigail got countered, another AA, 1, 2, 3. And thus you pretty much just killed Bray Wyatt, as far as a character. You killed it. Killed it right there. Yeah, he won at Extreme Rules because he used a kid with a dubbed over voice. And then he lost at, was it Payback? I'm trying to remember. Payback 2015. I genuinely don't remember. The whole point is that Bray's momentum got stopped. He did not get it back. I'm not saying that he wasn't popular, but he had beaten Daniel Bryan. See, now I'm used to calling him Bryan Danielson. He'd beaten Bryan at the Rumble just a little bit before. The Wyatt family and the Shield had their feud, before, going into Elimination Chamber and a couple other things. And then they did this. Had Bray won, tell me that Cena wouldn't have been just fine after a loss. I'm not even saying he had to give in to the goddamn hate. He could have hit Rowan. Bray could have hit him with Sister Abigail. 1, 2, 3. And there you are. You make a star. And there you go. But no, Vince couldn't do that. Vince was going to take everything from the fans because we wanted Bryan to be in the main event. So, it was nice. It was nice storytelling. By the time they did it at Mania 36, people say, oh, Cena got his comeuppance. I guess. So, Hall of Fame 2014 class. Jake Roberts, Scott Hall, Lita, Mr. T, Paul Bearer, accepted by his sons, all 4 of them. I'm sorry. The guy that likes to cover up murderers, Carlos Colon, and then the Ultimate Warrior, whose heart beat its final beat on Tuesday, just a little bit after this. And look, I feel bad for his kids. I don't feel bad for his stupid twat, crackpot wife. But I just want to once again say, fuck the Ultimate Warrior. I'm glad he's dead. Oh, he created the Warrior Award. He created that for himself. I don't buy for a second that he meant that shit. I don't believe for a second that he changed. You do, that's fine. So, anyway, Taker gets his big entrance. There's a bunch of caskets. This is the thing where I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But Brock's casket catches flames. And it's Taker versus Brock with Heyman. And big old deal. Big deal here. And this match is noteworthy basically because Taker got a concussion very early on. And because of that, the match was kind of limping along. To be fair, this match also didn't need to go another 20-something minutes. And with the post-match, with Taker's entrance and the post-match, it was like 40 minutes of pay-per-view time. And yes, it was a big deal, but I fully believe that Undertaker had his streak taken away. And no, I'm no fan of the person that Undertaker actually is, but as far as the streak, yeah, the streak should have been intact. In fact, what you could have done, swap it. Brock beats Cena, Bray beats Taker. You have that right there. Bray has something to hang his hat on, his swamp hat on. Brock could have destroyed Cena. Cena could have won the title. Brock could have destroyed him again. It would have meant just the same. Yes, they wanted to have Brock beat the streak. And then later they realized, hey, Roman could beat the streak and we could just continue this feud. But they had Brock win in a match that wasn't all that great, and then all the energy. It's like everybody's souls got sucked into the goddamn sky. Because Vince was a spiteful son of a bitch, and still is. And you had Undertaker Street Guy that was all shocked. Everybody was shocked. Everybody was booing. The graphic 21-1. Undertaker did end up collapsing backstage and had to be taken to the hospital. Vince went with him. A couple other people went with him, I'm sure. Yeah, he got rocked early on. Try to figure out where he got. That's the only thing I'm going to leave up for people. Like, rewatch it and try to figure out where Taker got rocked, because you can see where his head snapped, and he wasn't moving all that well after that. I don't know how the hell he managed to get through that match. But yeah, the streak is over. And even though he would beat Bray, who had a bad ankle at Mania 31, he would beat Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 32. And he would, what was it? He would win again. It was Mania, was he at Mania 35? I'm trying to remember. He beat Cena at Mania 34 and he wasn't at Mania 35. That's right. And then he beat AJ at Mania 36. That was his last match. So, the Vicky Guerrero Invitational for the Divas Championship. I think that's what it was called. There were about 40 women in this goddamn thing. And Layla was there. The Bellas were there. I think Rosa Mendez was in the ring. She was never qualified to wrestle. I know she had her struggles and she was a fine valet, but she was not good in the ring. AJ Lee was defending her Divas title and she tapped out Naomi. And the crowd did not give a fuck about this. And it's not that I didn't respect what the women were doing. But homie, oh my, down on the bayou, this was not good. And that was a lone women's match on the goddamn thing. So, Mean Gene is with Hogan. And I know it sounds like I just skipped over everything about the women, but I mean, please take a look at that match. They couldn't have made that work no matter what. And I'm not saying they didn't give effort. Mean Gene's backstage with Hogan. Flashbacks to WrestleMania 1, flashback to the AWA days. Piper, Orndorff, Mr. T, and Ring Boy Scandal enthusiast Pat Patterson are there. And it's reuniting everything about Mania 1 except Muhammad Ali, who wasn't in great shape at this point. And Jimmy Snuka wasn't in great shape, but Jimmy Snuka deserved every bad thing that happened to him. So, yeah, it was what it was. We got handshaking, and Piper didn't want to shake the hand, and unfortunately, Roddy Piper would not live more than another 18 months after this. Orndorff passed away. Mr. T is still alive. Mean Gene passed away. Hogan is still alive. Hogan outlived Randy Savage, and that sticks in my craw. Bruno, Brett, Backlund, Harley, and Dusty are at ringside for the main event. Orton gets played to the ring by his band. I think it was Rev Theory, I believe. Batista gets a spotlight entrance. Batista should have been brought back as a heel. Cocky heel. He was never going to be against Orton at Mania 30 and have it be well received. If Bryan hadn't gotten really popular, it still wouldn't have been a great event because at that point, Batista was about to have Guardians of the Galaxy come out and he was really going to start to ascend in his movie career. And Orton at this point really was he was pretty much coasting. Bryan has his arm taped. Yes, crowd's getting into it. Bryan, Batista, and Orton in a three-way match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship of the Universal World and everything. And yeah, it wasn't a heavy Kuwait title because they did not kick the Shiite out of him. I don't know why I decided to quote MXC. Let's move on. Anytime Batista and Orton were in the ring, yeah, this crowd didn't give a fuck. Bryan kept him into it. There was some nice back and forth. One guy would go to the floor, or one guy would be down in the corner. Two guys would go at it. Sometimes we get some nice three-way action. Not the type of three-way action I've heard you can get in New Orleans. So I've heard. I've never actually been to New Orleans yet. But let's move on from that. Triple H and Stephanie show back up. The referee gets bumped. Scott Armstrong, who's the authority referee, shows up. And then Bryan dives on them. Stephanie takes a bump. Just too damn bad that she actually got back up. I know that she's a mother and people respect her, but Stephanie didn't need to be an on-screen character at this point. She was a carbon copy of her dad, but at least her dad, for every fault that he has, as far as an on-screen character, worked. Stephanie was one note. That being said, we got a hammer shot, because Bryan took the hammer away from Triple H, tried to roll up Batista. Orton fought that out, got Bryan, threw him to the floor. They cleared off the announcer's table. This took about 4 years. Powerbomb, RKO combo. Bryan's being taken away on a stretcher. Gets back in the ring eventually. And we get a little more back and forth. He gets the yes lock on Orton. He gets the yes lock on Batista. That gets broken up. Batista hits a move on Orton. Bukkake knee. Yes lock. Tap out Batista. Tap out Batista. Cole pretty much ruining the goddamn thing right there, yelling that. Is he going to tap? And then he taps. And then the Miracle on Bourbon Street. Bryan celebrating. A blonde lady and her daughter get in the ring. I don't remember who the fuck that is. I think they're related to him. Was that? I don't remember. Help me. I've gone blank. It's been 10 years. And Connor the Crusher got to celebrate with him as well, apparently, according to backstage footage. And that's good. Rest in peace, Connor. So it was a big, big moment for Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. And then he got to win the Intercontinental Championship at Mania 31 next year. And then I was at his retirement about just under 2 years after this. That being said, you know what? Memorable, but just maybe not for the best reasons. Let me know your thoughts on Mania 30 in the comments, please. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.